37 years in police, with 3 years as the chief of the police force in a very difficult state of Bihar. In all, roughly about 4 decades of my policing experience. And what do you think, gentlemen, this has taught me? All the crimes that we see around us, that we hear about, that we read from the news media, are essentially economic activities. That's how we come to economics of crime. Into thinking along these lines relates to a town in Bihar, a small town. A heinous incident of dacoity had taken place. Apart from the wanton violence that was committed by the criminals, a lot of property was also looted away. We detected the crime, we nabbed the criminals. We were also able to recover a very insignificant part of the looted property. My seniors and my subordinates both appeared to be very satisfied with the entire outcome, not me. I was less than satisfied because I felt unsettled. Where had the rest of the property, which we could not recover, gone? Incidents after incidents like this kept taking place, and the same question kept coming back to me with regular nagging thing like. It nagged me very regularly. I was somehow able to link the unrecovered property to the ill-gotten wealth that I saw around me in the society. I was not able to identify the two of them completely because the shape and form of the two properties were entirely different. But the feeling within me that crimes lead to ill-gotten wealth had sunk in by then. As years rolled by, my thoughts began to crystallize. My ideas became clear. I was more than convinced that crimes lead to black money. They generate black money, in fact. But policing focuses on the people. That is, the persons who commit the crime. They are criminals, as we call them. It is true that police department was neither designed nor trained to track the trail of black money, which is created in the wake of the series of crimes that get committed. It is prepared and designed and trained to nab criminals and, as we call in our parlance, bring them to justice. This desire within me to shift the focus of policing from person to property burned for very long years, till I got an opportunity to put my ideas through an experiment into practice. This experiment and the conceptual part of it was formed in a way that I had only about 3 years when I took over as a police chief to complete the experiment. The 3 years that I had is definitely not long enough for stable conclusions to be drawn as the outcome of the experiment. But it's definitely a long enough period for conclusions to be drawn about the possible solutions to the problem of proliferating crime. The theoretical concept on which this experiment was based comes onto your screen now. You will notice this is a schematic diagram where you have leaks on both sides of the state, the revenue as well as the expenditure. These leaks are caused by the criminals who have graduated from the yellow-collared domain of crime to the white-collared ones. And the leaks of late have become so huge that a monstrous parallel state has been created. You will see from the diagram that the parallel state is bigger in size than the state. So apparently it appears that the parallel state grows at the cost of the state, which is true. And therefore, the natural question that arises is, does the police protect the parallel state in the name of the state? Are we doing that? And this is a question which I kept asking myself all through my career. The final outcome of this entire process, which has been depicted very schematically and which you are seeing on your screen, suggests that at the end of the whole thing, we create white laundered assets of criminals. While this money laundering is going on, the black money is getting converted into white, there is also a parallel process, which I call social laundering, which is simultaneously taking place. A class of people who are both powerful economically as well as socially is created. And they are very powerful people. In fact, they are so powerful that even the most honest policeman, with the best of intentions, is not able to take them on. It is therefore very easy to see why the power of criminals and their potential to commit crimes does not lie in his person. Instead, it lies in his assets and his properties. When I was contemplating the design of my experiment, I came across another problem, which was neither social nor economic. It was legal instead. I had decided that the laboratory in which I'll devise my experiment and conduct it will be the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Unfortunately, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act does not provide the police with any role to play whatsoever. I had therefore no option but to act only as a catalyst to the Enforcement Directorate, which was the agency which was created under that act, not the police, to execute everything that was given in the act. The template of my experiment was ready, and my experiment was on. The Bihar police gathered data, relevant ones, collected all the documents to back up the data, and then made very formal proposals to the Enforcement Directorate to initiate action against all hues and all colors of gangs which are operating across the board in the state of Bihar. Just to illustrate my point, the gangs included gangs which indulged in kidnapping for ransom. These are the gangs which defamed Bihar some time back. There were gangs of bootleggers who would cause periodical crisis, the huge tragedies. There were gangs which indulged in flesh trade. This is an offense which I have always maintained as a policeman is a silent killer in society. The police and the Enforcement Directorate worked in tandem, and in complete unison. There was just no difference between the intentions of the Bihar police and the Enforcement Directorate. That is why very soon confiscation orders of properties which were illegally gotten wealth, which were laundered white assets, of the gangsters were passed by the competent authority in the Enforcement Directorate. Results had started coming in. The results were also seen on the ground because the confiscation orders of the properties that I have just talked about were implemented on the ground. Results were visible, and the impact on the psyche of the criminals was palpable. They were stunned. They were shocked because they had never expected this response from any police force. Bihar was perhaps the first police force to have experimented with this idea in this form. The media also started becoming curious about the whole process. They had not perhaps seen it before. And therefore, they started observing the entire process and the outcome of the process. They started writing positively about it. The wise men in the state were also very appreciative about the process because they started feeling that this was having an impact at the root of the problem. And this was a concept which was getting into the people whom we call usually intellectuals in the society. Things were going on extremely well, but there was one problem still which remained, and we had started off with this problem. The problem still remains. The problem is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act as yet does not offer any role to the police to play. Therefore, the police does not have any option but to act as a catalyst in this process, the experiment that I have just described. Paradigms in crime keep changing with time, but there is one constancy in all these changes. The concept that crime is essentially an economic activity, and if crime has to be tackled, then this paradigm has to be kept in mind and factored in. The methodology of policing will have to change. It is time, therefore, and it is high time, therefore, that the mission statement of the police gets changed or at least modified from prevention and detection of crime to detection of black money and preventing the laundering thereof. My contention is that if this process is carried on, then society will become a livable place to be in. Hoping for such a tomorrow, thank you very much.